All right. Hey, Judges 19. There's an interesting line in the text of 19, 20, 21. And it refers to the high priest at this time was a guy named Phinehas. Okay? Now, those of you with kids, that's not the cartoon character on Phineas and Ferb. Okay? Phinehas. I know, it's like my favorite cartoon. I watch it when the kids are like gone. I still kind of watching it. That's so funny. All right? It just is. All right? But Phinehas, there's an interesting story about Phinehas and a very interesting personality quirk about him. And if you know anything about politics or sort of pop culture, generally you have this one guy out there and his followers tend to try to emulate him. And sometimes this goes horribly wrong, right? Correct? You all with me? Because you try and do what your hero does and you're not your hero. And it just crashes and burns, and it's horrible. Well, Phinehas has this reputation. He's the grandson of Aaron, all right? And the children of Israel are wandering. But they get to the place called Baal Peor, all right? And Balaam has convinced the people there in the area of Peor, if you will seduce the men of Israel, they'll fall for it every single time. And so you can distract them away from their God will destroy them, so you don't have to destroy them yourself, all right? And so, sure enough, bat the eye 1, 2, 3 times, done. The Israelite men are like, whoa, where do we go, all right? Aren't you glad we're not like this today, men? All right? We have such strength and courage and fortitude. Yeah. Anyway, still works, all right? So Phinehas is sitting there and he goes, this is not happening. We are not supposed to be doing that. We're not supposed to be hanging out with those kind of women, not only those kind of women, but those kind of women, all right? And so he observes one of his guys walking into his tent with one of these Moabite women. And Phinehas says, no. That's not going to fly with me. He follows the couple into this tent, takes his spear, and runs them both through. And God in this moment goes, that's my guy. That one is zealous for my righteousness. Good job, Phinehas. Now, what happens if his followers go, oh, we're supposed to kill people anytime we think they're doing something wrong? Do you see where this goes off the rails pretty quick? Okay? Because see, in this moment, Phinehas had a decision to make. Was there an urgency to what was going on? Yes or no? Was there an urgency? Hey, no. Something needs to be done now. There's a difference between doing something now and doing something right now. Now, how often in the moment of urgency do we do right now? And how often do we just do now? You with me? Because anybody can do what is now. How often do we put this together just perfectly and we do the right thing right now? That's very difficult, right? Because in that urgency of the moment, what do we tend to do? Do we make good decisions when we're rash, when we're just, how often does it go, man, I just nailed that. I just wasn't even really thinking. I just did the first thing that came to my mind, and that was the righteous thing to do. How rare is that? So Phinehas is the high priest at this time, okay? Which means we're very early in the book of Judges, which is really weird because it's at the back of Judges, right? So not only is the story weird, but the placement is wrong too, okay? So this story should be more towards the front during the lifetime of Phinehas and while he was the high priest, all right? And you're going to see a lot of this thing of there was an urgency to the moment, and they did what they thought they should do now, and it was impulsive, and it was rash, and oftentimes it was harsh. And we do this all the time, amen? When we don't take the time to think, what is the right thing to do right now, rather than just, what do I need to do now, okay? So, 19, it begins with this. In those days when there was no king in Israel, no king literally means there was no king here, but for us, what does it mean? No governing authority. There was no standard of right and wrong, no measure of, I shouldn't do that because if I do this, he will be upset. The law will be upset. I will get thrown in jail. There was no sort of governance. So people did what? They did what was right. Can you stop the sentence there? No, because what's the rest of the sentence? In their own eyes. And generally, when you do what is right in your own eyes, how often is that right? Any of you corner the market on wisdom? Oh, if I do what's right in my own eyes, it's always right. Now, we do hold that standard for everybody else, right? If they would do right what I think they should do, then they would be righteous, right? Well, no, you're jacked up as much as they are, so why would it be better if they did what you thought they should do, okay? So it's a whole big mess. So in those days, there was no king in Israel, so everybody did what was right in their own eyes. And here's an example. A Levite. What's a Levite? This is simple. No trick question. What's a Levite? A descendant of Levi, okay? All right? Aaron is 4 generations down. All of his descendants are priests. The rest of them are just Levites, all right? They are serving the tabernacle. They're sort of the road crew, all right? They put the tabernacle together. They bring cows and goats and stuff. And the priests are the one who actually do sort of the talent, if you want to go there, okay? So a Levite living in a remote part of the hill country of Ephraim, okay? Do I have that first map? Give me the map of like the whole Israel thing. Okay, you see the purple right in the middle? That is Ephraim, okay? Y'all are squinting, it's not that bad. All right, Ephraim is right there in the middle, okay? And so the hill country is off over here on the right side, or what would be the east side, okay? And you see below it in sort of the light orange is Benjamin, and then below it in the green is Judah. And Jerusalem sits right sort of on the border between between Judah and Benjamin, okay? Bethlehem is about 7 miles south of there. I'll give you a better map here. I just want to give you some bearings here, okay? So here's the sort of the area we're looking at. Now, eventually we're going to hear this saying, from Dan to Beersheba. Everybody heard that before? It's used in the text 9 times. All of Israel from Dan to Beersheba. Basically, if you went all the way up to the top, Naphtali in the yellow, at the beginning of the top of that is the city of Dan. All right, and we get the Jordan River because its sourcing is where? From Dan. So the Jordan, or the sourced in Dan River, all right? And Beersheba goes all the way down here to Simeon, which is the little thing inside of Judah, okay? So when we hear that phrase, from Dan to Beersheba, we're talking about all of Israel, okay? But I just want you to get your bearings. So Ephraim is that purple, and the hill country is on the right side. Benjamin right there in the middle, and then Jerusalem, and then Bethlehem below it, okay? Switch to that other map. All right, so in those days, no king, a Levite living in a remote part of the hill country of Ephraim acquired a woman. Anybody red flagging it yet? All right, this story's going to get worse, okay? This is the nice, polite part of the story. He acquired a woman. Does anybody have a different word there? A concubine, but what the action, the acquired? Took to himself. Took is a good. Took is probably the best word for this. It's lambano in the Greek. It means to take something, okay? And did he take, does anybody have your translation, a wife? He took a woman, all right? Now, in the Hebrew, it actually says a wife concubine, all right? He took a wife concubine. So you have this sort of scale, okay? So you have a wife, which would be an arranged marriage. You have all these things. And then on the other side, you would have servants that simply served and they did things. Now, if you had a situation where you have a wife and you have certain opportunities, shall we say, with a wife, all right, that you would not necessarily take with your servant, now put those hands together. And now you have a wife-ish person with whom you would have certain opportunities, shall we say, all right? Am I being gentle enough? All right, all right? And you have a servant who has certain obligations to you. So you can have a wife, and you can have a servant, or you can have a concubine. And a Levite, who is supposed to know the law backwards and forwards, has taken, literally the word for taken, acquired a woman, all right? The feminists just go crazy. He acquired a woman, all right, from Bethlehem in Judah as his wife concubine. Okay, literally, it's both words in the Hebrew. It was wife concubine, okay? Now, you can see here, Bethlehem is down here at the bottom. Now, why would you take a concubine, okay? Now, most of the time, it was in some way, in any way, shape, or form honorable. It would be because this person was from a poor family. They did not have the capacity to be an arranged marriage. It was all these things. Remember, Solomon had 700 wives who were princesses, and he had 300 concubines. And the generous way of describing this is these were probably widows. They were unable to care for themselves, and so Solomon would bring them in as his wife. So it was more of a, I will take care of you, but you're not going to have the honor of being sort of the not popular, but the sort of the good people. You're sort of the not as good people, but I'll take you in to care for you, protect you, and you can, in exchange, provide, serve, do all these things, okay? So it's kind of an arrangement that the society would kind of take care of itself, all right? Because otherwise, this woman who might be a widow would starve to death. So a person would take her in, but not necessarily as a full-blown wife, okay? But what's he doing? Now, I think the guy lives up here in Bethel. Look at the very top, all right? Bethel means the house of God, Bet Elohim. Bet Elohim, the house of God. All right, I believe he lives up here. What in the world's he doing getting a wife, concubine, from Bethlehem, the house of bread? Why is he getting one from there? He's lost, amen? All right, he's 20 miles away from home, but yet he takes this woman. I would venture to guess that he may have taken a little trip and seen a little friendly person and decided, I think I want that one, and he acquires her. Okay? Otherwise, he would be looking for a widow or something from there in Bethel. Okay? Now, verse 2. But she was unfaithful to him and left him. She went to her father's house in Bethlehem in Judah. She was there for a period of 4 months. Okay? Now, that has reminiscence of what story? A person acquires a wife, and she is unfaithful and leaves. Who is this? Hosea, all right? You with me? Hosea marries the prostitute Gomer, and then she kind of has her little flings, her 3 flings, and then we have sort of echoes of this story in here, okay? Because why? What are people doing in this time when there is no king? They're doing what is right in their own eyes. So if I want to just take on a concubine, all right? Ladies, how would you do with if you were the wife and your husband went, I think I want a concubine. I found one 20 miles away, just happened upon one that was in desperate need of being cared for, right? 20 miles away. I'm going to bring her into the house. But she is unfaithful. Why is she unfaithful? Because everyone was doing what was right. Where? In their own eyes. And so she's gone for how long? 4 months. He's devastated, right? 4 months. He hadn't seen her. And what's he doing? Getting up the next day, doing his thing. 4 months. How in love is he? How much does he care for her after 4 months? All right? But he's such a good guy because he's doing what's right in his own eyes. Then her husband got up and went after her to speak kindly to her. Anybody have a different word for speak kindly? Anybody have heart in there? To persuade her. It literally means to speak to her from his heart. After how long? Dads, husbands, anybody seeing this? You with me? After 4 months, are you speaking kindly from your heart? Trey, you hadn't seen Kelsey in 4 months, and you're like, I think I want to go speak kindly to her from my heart. Because it's like, yeah, that would have been like day 2, all right? 4 months later, I don't think so. And bring her back, and he had a servant with him and a pair of donkeys. So she brought him to her father's house, and when the girl's father saw him, he gladly welcomed him. That's a bad translation. Don't welcome is not the word here. It literally means, it's the term when 2 armies would go and they would meet each other. And they might fight or they might sort of have this agreement, okay? But they're coming out to meet each other, all right? It's something where somebody meets and they are escorted back one way or the other. It's not this, welcome, come on in, it's great to see you, Grandma, come on in the house. No, it's not that at all, okay? His father-in-law, the girl's father, detained him. Literally, it's the word for to seize him, and he stayed with them for 3 days. They ate, drank, spent the night there. On the 4th day, they got up. He said, I'm out of here. He goes, no, stay for one more day, stay for one more day. Why? What does Dad want? Does Dad want them to leave? No, he wants his daughter to stay behind. Get up the next day. We got to go. No, stay. No. Eventually they say, nope, we got to go. We got to get out of here. Okay, so they're down here where? In what city? Where was she from? Bethlehem, okay? And so they're going to travel back to his house, what I believe, again, I would suggest to you that's in Bethel, okay? And they're heading north, all right? And they get up to the city, and you can see the city of Jebus, okay? Now, this would be the modern city of Jerusalem, okay? But the Jebusites lived here, all right? And so they get to Jebus, all right? And the man has his concubine daughter, not daughter, stop, scratch that. His wife concubine with him. And they get there, and he's got his servant with him, and they get to Jebus, and the servant's like, I'm out, man, I'm tired, let's stay here. Let's just stay here. He goes, oh, no, we would not want to stay in a pagan city. We need to go to an Israelite city where everyone does the right thing, right? Everyone does what's right. Thank you, Shannon. Say it. Right where? In their own eyes. And that'll go really well, right? Because we don't want to be like the pagans who do what is right in their own eyes as well, okay? So they bypass Jebus. They go all the way up to Gibeah. Now they get to Gibeah, and they're like, whew, we're here, all right? And they go hang out in the city square, okay? Now, very common thing. We saw this with Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah. You would go to the city square, and somebody would take you in. This is the idea of hospitality. This is just the way it worked, all right? And it would be a shocking thing if somebody said, this guy sat in the city square and no one took them in. But that's exactly what's happening in this moment, all right? And this old man comes in from the fields, all right? And you can see this in verse 16. In the evening, an old man came in from his work in the field, and he was from the hill country of Ephraim, so neighbors, but he was residing in Gibeah. Now, Gibeah is right in the middle of Benjamin, and this is where Saul is from. King Saul, maybe 300 years later, is going to come from this very city, all right? So he says, where you going? What you doing? Come on in. They're having a good old time. And then in verse 22, while they were enjoying themselves, just having a good old time, good time, all of a sudden, perverted men of the city surrounded the house and beat on the door, all right? Now, perverted, you may have the word worthless. Anybody have worthless? What is it? Wicked? Anything else? All right? It's worthless, generally translated worthless throughout the Bible. Worthless, perverted, wicked men surround the house. All right? They said to the old man who was the owner of the house, bring out the man who came to your house so that we can know him. Literally, the Hebrew word is yada, to know, okay? So we'll just roll with that, okay? The owner of the house said, no, don't do this evil, my brothers. After all, this man has come to my house. I am responsible for him, which may explain why they were still sitting in the city square. Because if you took him into your house, guess what? You are now responsible for his protection and provision. So if I don't take anybody in, I'm not responsible because I know what kind of city I'm living in. A city in which everyone does what is right in their own eyes. Don't do this horrible thing. Here, let me bring out my virgin daughter and the man's concubine now. What an honorable place this is, all right? You feel the honor of this thing? Here, have my daughter and take the man's concubine. And what does the man do in this moment? Does he go, no, not my concubine, all right? You're not taking her. What does he do? Keep going, all right? Use them, do whatever you want to them, but don't do this horrible thing to this man, okay? Let's be real clear. This is a whole different time, a whole different culture, a whole different set of rules. So please don't think, oh, the Bible thinks we should just throw these women out so they can be abused all night. That's not what the Bible's saying. Narrative is not normative. Narrative is narrative. This is what happened in a place where there was no king and everyone did what? what was right. Did they do right now? No, they just did now in this moment, didn't they? Why? What won? Fear or love? We have to come to a place where we love more than we fear. And we act in our love more than we act in our fear. Hamilton says this, Alexander Hamilton said, the one who would trade disgrace in the face of danger is worthy of a master. The one who would trade disgrace. I'll take disgrace. Keep the danger away from me. Is one who is prepared for a master. All right? And in this moment, what's this Levite doing and this old man doing? Here, take the women. Take the women. But the men would not listen to them. So the man seized his concubine. Where is she? Is she going, I'll go out there. I'll die for you. No, she's like in the corner scared. He grabs her and throws her out. Why? Because there was an urgency to this moment, right? And you do what you need to do now. And what was in his mind to do right now? Was it right now? Or was it just now? There's nothing right about this. Seized his concubine, took her outside to them. They knew her, all right? That word to know is always in context. They changed the definition. Abused her all night until morning. At daybreak, they let her go. Early that morning, the woman made her way back. As it was getting light, she collapsed or fell at the doorway of the man's house where her master was. All right? You feel what's going on here? Okay? When her master got up in the morning, that sentence alone just made me mad when I was reading it this week. He got up. Got up from what? He had a good night's sleep, didn't he? What? You see, when you do what is right in your own eyes, you don't care about anybody else. Anyone. Because you think God says you should be happy. And if God thinks I should be happy because God loves me, he thinks I should be happy, then you're going to do only what matters to you. So while this lady is being abused all night long, literally to the point of death, he got a good night's sleep. See why this story is so messed up? Got up in the morning, opened the door of the house, went out to leave on his journey. Bags packed, ready to go. Where's my concubine? I need to take her with me. She's collapsed right there at your feet. There was the woman, his concubine, collapsed near the doorway of the house with her hands on the threshold. Well, why add that? Why add that comment? What's she doing? Her hands are on the threshold of the door. She's reaching out. Somebody let me in. But they were asleep, weren't they? Get up, he told her. Let's go. Now, ladies, I know y'all are fuming at this point. Amen? I mean, and the guys are like, just don't say a word. Just don't say a word. Just look straight forward. Don't look at anybody else. Just look straight forward. Okay? You should be. You should be angry in this moment because this is not how any man treats any woman, much less his concubine, for which he is responsible for her provision and her protection. But yet, get up, let's go. He picks her up. All right? The man picks her up, puts her on his donkey, and sets out for home. Well, at least he did put her on the donkey, since she's practically dead, and didn't say, hey, I'm sitting on the donkey, you walk. All right? When he entered the house, he picked up a knife, took hold of his concubine, seized his concubine, and cut her into 12 pieces, limb by limb, and then sent her throughout the territory of Israel. You know, the interesting thing, it never says she died, does it? Now, I'm reading in a little bit here, but it never says explicitly that she died before he cut her up. Everyone who saw it said nothing like this has ever happened or has been since the days the Israelites came out of the land of Egypt to this day. Think it over, discuss it, and speak up. So, how messed up is this story? Pretty bad so far, right? Because what's happening? What's he doing? What's doing what's expedient. I'm in trouble. I'm in danger. Throw the women out there. They're hurt. They're messed up. Now what do? Now I got to make a decision. What's the right decision in this moment under these circumstances? Cut her up, send her out to everybody else. Because in Proverbs, how many times does it say, make sure you stir up conflict? How many times does it say, make sure your grievances are known to everyone in the office? Because that will make it all better. Huh? Make sure I post my passive-aggressive remarks on Facebook so the right person will hear it. And people will ask me, ooh, what's going on? Ooh. They'll send me messages. I can, well, you're no different than him. You are stirring up trouble. You see, when we do what's now, somebody hurt me. I should say something about it. Some say, I should do something. And can you believe they did it? And what's going on? What does Proverbs say? It doesn't say stir up trouble. What does it say? Settle the matter. Deal with it. Figure out a way to create calm. But what does this guy do? This guy sends pieces all over the place. What's he looking for? Justice? Is he looking for justice? Is he looking for grievance? He did probably have to pay money for this concubine, and now she's been killed-ish. And now I've lost this. I'm out money. Or is he looking for vengeance? What's right now for this man? What's the solution? Stop before he cuts her up. Now what should he do? In this moment when his concubine has been killed, let's say she's been killed, now what does he do? Because his decision was to do what? Cut her up and send it off to all the other tribes. Stir up all this trouble. Stir up all this conflict. Stir up all this moment. So he gets his vengeance because he's doing what is right in his own eyes. Is he doing right? Was that the righteous thing to do? Again, what does Proverbs say? Stir up trouble or settle the matter? What do? We do what now calls for. Rash? Expedient? Or do we do the righteous thing? Do we step back? I always try and tell my kids, don't ask the first question, ask the next question. Don't ask just the first question. You need to ask the next question and the next question and the next question. If I do this, what will happen? If I say this, what will happen? Yeah, I have every right to react this way. But if I do that, what will happen next? And there's wisdom when you start to ask the next question, not just the first question. All right? I think we see this most clearly in the issue of abortion. And please don't hear any judgment in this. I know in a size, this audience this size, there are people affected by this. And please hear me. I just want to see an example. I should be happy. This baby is going to get in the way of that. I should kill it. Do you see the expediency? Do you see that? Well, that works. That gets me out of it. But did you ask the next question? And what scares me as a country is when we go, okay, this lady's pregnant and that's going to interrupt her life. We should kill the baby. At what point does that become, wait, that's not an option. We can't do that. What are some other options? What are some other things we can do so that we don't go down that road? But no, what does expediency say? What does urgency say? It's a minor operation to solve a major problem. Done. And you see, this is what's going on. This is the pattern of this thing. It's always, what can we do? Okay, do that. Just hurry up and do that. So there's all this outrage, chapter 20. All the Israelites from Dan to Beersheba, from the land of Gilead, that means on the other side of the Jordan, came out and the community assembled as one body before the Lord at Mizpah. The leaders of the people and all the tribes of Israel presented themselves in the assembly of God's people. 400,000 armed foot soldiers. And the Benjamites heard that the Israelites had gone up to Mizpah. 400,000 armed soldiers come together. When armed soldiers come together, what generally happens next? Is that when you have a nice little calm discussion? So 400,000 people rally to this Levite who has acquired a concubine and who has thrown her out for her to be abused all night so that he doesn't get harmed. They end up killing her, in essence, and he wants to make sure everybody knows his grievance. And all these people rally to him. Now, are things getting settled here? Or are things getting just stirred up? And what does Proverbs say over and over and over? Settle the matter. But no, we're all fired up. Now, that interesting detail at the end. What happened? The Benjamites did what? Heard about this little meeting at Mizpah. Now what's going to happen? Now what's happening in this moment? If 11 other tribes get together here and one of them is being talked about and they're over here, anybody ever been in that dynamic before? That group of people is talking about you and your little group of people. Now that's a perfect way for peace, right? No. When you know, you and your little group know that them and their little group are talking about you, what happens? Resolution? No, it's just leading to conflict. That's why this detail is so interesting, that the Benjamites heard about all this stuff. So they go, hey, tell us what happens, which he gets really creative here. Verse 5, the citizens of Gibeah ganged up on me and surrounded the house at night. They intended to kill me, but they raped my concubine and she died. Proverbs also says the first version of the story always sounds right. You with me? The first version of the story always sounds right. Which begs the question, what's the second version of the story? What's the other side of the story? Do you think he's going to paint this picture of, well, I had a concubine, I let her go for 4 months, didn't really pay attention. I eventually went down, got her, was bringing her back, staying in Gibeah. This crowd came, wanted to have sex with me, and I just threw my concubine out there and she died. What happens if he tells the true and accurate story here? Do you think we go to war? No, but when the citizens of Gibeah gang up on me, wanted to kill me, and then they grabbed my concubine and they killed her instead. Now they killed a woman. Now it's on, right? We got to fight. So they come together and they fight, and they go up to Bethel, and they say, we got to inquire of God to make sure this is all on the level. And he goes, which one of us should be the first one to go? Which tribe should be the first one to go? And God just says, why don't you send Judah out there first? Now, what question did they not ask? When you start off with the intention of going to war and say, who should go to war first, what conclusion have you already drawn about what God's will is? That he wants you to go, all right? Because that's the right thing, right? Who asks the next question and the next question and the next? I got a question. How did you survive but your concubine didn't? That's my question. How did it come about? And why are you spreading all of this so that everybody's involved now? Why are you doing this? What's your motive here? You see, no one's asking the next question. They're just asking the first one. They're just responding in the urgency, and they do what's now. So they're going to war. Who should be first? And I think God just kind of goes, all right, you're going. Send Judah. So they go out and they fight. They fight against this little city of Gibeah. They've got 40,000 troops that are going to die the next 2 days. Gibeah's got 25,000, 26,000. 22,000 people die first day. Oh, God, why? I think God's patient with us every now and then. And he goes, look in a mirror, get back to me. So they ask again, should we go again? And God goes, yeah, go out there, knock yourself out. Fight for that Levite guy and his injustice. They go out and fight the second day. 18,000 more die. What are we up to now? 40,000 people have died now. They go back, God, why? Offered up these offerings and do all these chants and weeping and crying. And God goes, all right, go out one more time. Tomorrow you can take them. They set up this ambush. 30 Israelites die as they retreat. And then all of a sudden they come back and they defeat them. And they wipe out 25,000 of the Benjamite troops. Can you give me a running count of the collateral damage that this Levite has caused at this point? Okay, one concubine died because his gutless husband, gutless husband, threw her out to the wolves. And in a means to get justice, 40,000 Israelite troops died. 25,000 Benjamite troops have died. Totally worth it, right? Totally worth it. But that's what happens when you do what's now and what is right now. And you have to ask the next question to get to that point. You have to not act in your impulse and do these things. 600 of them escape. Go over here in verse 47. Again, y'all can read this if you want to, or just chalk it up to, that's crazy. I ain't reading that, all right? 600 men escaped to the wilderness of the rock of Rimmon, stayed there for 4 months. The men of Israel turned back against the other Benjamites and killed them with the sword, the entire city, the animals, everything that remained. They also burned down all the cities that remained. How are we doing on collateral damage? My concubine that I threw out there got killed. I think there should be justice. 40,000 troops, 25,000 troops. Now they turn back and wipe out all the other Benjamite cities. What are we doing here? But don't we do this too? We react in our selfishness, what is right in our own eyes, and all this collateral damage happens, and we go, well, they started it. Well, you know what? You could have ended it. 1 Corinthians 6, Paul gets on the Corinthian church. He goes, what's this deal with lawsuits among you, among your fellow believers, among your fellow churchgoers? How embarrassing is this that you can't settle a dispute? He says, wouldn't it be better if you just got harmed and took it rather than going to the judgment seat of Corinth and exposing all of this and defaming the name of God? Why can't you just take the harm? What are you so worried about? How are you so selfish in this? And then that's exactly what this guy's doing. Because he just wants now. I just want vengeance. And now we got 40,000 Israeli troops, 25,000 Benjamite troops, and all the Benjamite cities are being wiped out. And the only thing left of Benjamin is 600 guys hiding up here in a rock. See Ramon all the way at the top? Hiding. This is where it just gets a little insane. The men of Israel, chapter 21, the men of Israel had sworn an oath at Mizpah. None of us will give his daughters to Benjamite in marriage. So the people went to Bethel and sat there before God until evening, and they wept loudly and bitterly and cried out, why, Lord God of Israel, has it occurred that one tribe is missing in Israel today? I wish God would talk in this moment, because you, in your rashness, killed them all. Any questions? The next day, the people got up early and built an altar there and offered burnt offerings, fellowship offerings. The Israelites asked, who of all the tribes of Israel didn't come to the Lord in the assembly? For a great oath has been taken that anyone who had not come to the Lord at Mizpah would certainly be put to death. And the Israelites had compassion on their brothers, the Benjamites. compassion, is that a good thing? It's not a good thing for stupid people. You know why? Because you're just going to further their stupidity. You have compassion on somebody that's stupid, you're not helping them. I always used to tell my students in my class, hey, shame is a wonderful thing. You got a 30 on a test? Good. Call out your grade so everybody can hear you. So you're ashamed of that. I didn't have any compassion on them. You know why? Because I didn't want them to be able to go, I made a 30. Don't embarrass me. Okay, you're going to be embarrassed eventually someday because you got a 30 on a test where I basically gave you the answers. You need to start studying, and you should be embarrassed of this. And they had compassion on the Benjamites who refused to turn over these wicked men who took this concubine and raped her until she died. Should I have compassion on you now? Should I go, oh, what can I do? And so they have an urgent moment, right? So what do they do in the urgency of the moment? They go, we've got 600 guys camped out at Ramon, and they have no way to get a wife because we made a rash oath to not give them our daughters. And so what do? Hey, who didn't show up for the battle? Jabesh Gilead. Nobody from Jabesh Gilead showed up. Okay, let's go kill everybody in the city of Jabesh Gilead and kidnap as many virgin daughters as we can and give them to the 600. What a great decision. Do you feel the wisdom just exuding off of this? Wait a second. We've got 600 people that refuse to turn over this person, and we're grieving and we're compassionate because part of our tribe is missing. What's the solution? Oh, I know. Let's go wipe out an entire city, kidnap as many young girls as we can, and now we bring them back. Now, what's happening to our collateral damage? Not only have we wiped out all the Benjamite cities, not only have 40,000 Israeli troops have died, now we just killed off one of our own cities, Jabesh Gilead, and kidnapped as many as we could, and all we could get was 400. So they go back, oh God, why? Why did you only give us 400? There's 600, and we're short. And so they go, what can we do now? I know. There is an annual festival where dancers come down. The virgin girls will come down and they will dance at Bethel. And so here's the thing. Send a message to the Benjamites. Go hide in the bushes. And when the virgin girls come out to do their little dance thing, go grab one and run back into the woods with her. And when their dads protest, we'll just say, it's okay. They needed wives. What a brilliant decision. Are you seeing what's happening here? When there's an urgency to it and you make the decision in the moment, you make the stupidest decisions ever. You have to ask the next question, what's the right thing to do? Not just the right now. And time after time, they do this. You know why? Because the last verse says what? In those days, there was no king in Israel, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes. Now, we talked about on Wednesday nights and Sunday mornings in 242, we've been talking about end times, so we've talked about this Antichrist figure over and over. But I would argue this. This man is the Antichrist. This man is the one who acted completely opposite of the person of Christ. It starts with what? He took a wife. Christ does not take a wife. It certainly doesn't take a concubine, one that just serves him and pleases him. He buys a bride with what? His own blood. He doesn't throw his bride, his concubine, into danger. He does what? He steps in front and takes the wrath of God for us. We are his bride. We are not his concubine. And he pours out all this. You see, this Levite stirs up all the trouble and creates all this damage. And he has all of these things in this one grievance, one small grievance that he didn't really even care that much about, right? 4 months before you go get her? He doesn't care about this woman. Why not make her your wife, not your wife concubine? He doesn't care about this woman. But Christ takes the infinite number of grievances. Amen? I got my share, all right? And what does he do? Instead of sending me out there to face the wrath of God, what does God do? He steps in front of us. He takes it himself. He settles the matter. You see, what Christ does is completely opposite of what this man does. And what's the collateral damage? I get salvation. All of us get salvation from our grievances. All of us get forgiveness. You see, this is the anti-Christ. And Christ is so different. He settles the matter. He protects his bride. And there is no collateral damage. There is no reason he would do this, though, is there? Why? Why would he do this for me? This guy does what was right in his own eyes. What does Christ do? He does what is right, what is righteous, what is just. But even more than that, he does what is grace. You see, righteousness and justice would have given me punishment. Oh, but it's his grace, the overwhelming grace to set aside all these grievances, to set aside all of my, I deserve this and I deserve this, to go, I will give you grace. So when you wake up tomorrow morning and you renew your mind to the beauty of that cross, I'm begging you, feel the grace of God that said, in spite of all of my grievance against you, I bought you. I bought you and you are mine. And I will provide for you and I will protect you because I am your Christ. We're going to play a song here. It's an oldie but a goodie. I love it. If you need to close your eyes, whatever, there's not going to be really any action. It's just the person on the screen. I want you to listen to the words of this song. The question the song asks is, what held you on the cross? And in spite of all the horror that you've experienced here of this story, I want you to recognize the anti-nature, the opposite nature of your loving, beautiful, romantic Christ. Father, open our eyes. Open our eyes right here and right now in this moment to your beauty and your grace and the peace that we can have before your throne. And remind us again tomorrow.